Hey, this is Math Minutes Pro with Dr. Harrison. Today, we're going to talk about finding the simple interest, commission, and tip. So we're going to be dealing with some percents and multiplication. The name of the game for this is making sure that we understand the problem and we know how to set it up and use the appropriate strategy. So these are word problems, and we go through the following steps when solving word problems. We read it, and then we read it again and maybe start underlining things to identify what's given. We make sure we know where the question is, and then we choose a strategy. Sometimes we draw a picture if necessary and label it, and then we solve the problem. So we're going to go through these steps. Let's go ahead and start with this word problem. Now, it says Nina sells her home for $240,000. She must pay the real estate agents a 5% commission. That's key. How much is the commission? Okay, now let's read the problem and then identify some key information. So I noticed Nina has to sell the home for $240,000. So that's key information right there. And Nina must pay her agents, real estate agents, a 5% commission. So 5% commission is key, and they want us to know what is that commission. What is that number of 5% commission? Okay, let's go ahead and get started with our problem. Now, we want to know how much is the commission. Commission, the 5%. 5% of what? 5% of the sale price for the home. So we're just going to write it like this. 5% of $240,000, right? Put that little, okay. So that's a way to simplify it. The question and the problem. So what we need to determine is what is the number. When you say 5% of means multiply, but we need to change this 5% to a decimal. So I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to write 5. And this is a little trick. You see those two zeros in the percent symbol? That tells us we know that the decimal is right here for 5, but we're going to move that decimal 2 spaces to the left. 1, 2. And then we're going to put a 0 right there. Okay? So then it becomes 0.05. We said of means times 240,000. Okay? So when I'm going to put an equal sign right there. You see what we did? We changed that 5% to a decimal. We moved that decimal 2 spaces to the left, and we converted the percent to a decimal. So now we need to multiply these two numbers, and then that gives us 12,000. So then our final answer is, as I said, how much is the commission? We know the commission is 12,000. We say 5% of, we're going to say the 5% commission. Okay, is $12,000. Okay, and this is what Nina is going to pay the agents. That's their commission for the sale of a home. When she sold that home for $240,000, the real estate agents earned a 5% commission, which is $12,000. Okay, not bad, not bad. May want to consider a career in real estate. Okay, so now I'd like to move towards solving a problem that involves simple interest. Okay, all right. We're going to go through our steps again, where we're going to read the problem and then read it and mark up what's given. And then we will make sure we identify the question or what they're asking us to do, choose a strategy, and solve the problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So this is a simple interest problem. Let's go ahead and read. It says, find the simple interest earned after 5 years on the $1,200 that's invested at 2% annual interest rate. Okay, so let's mark up and see what they want us to do. They want us to find the simple interest. That is key. And there's a formula for that. Okay, so the formula for simple interest is I. I represents simple interest, and that's equal to P, R, and T. Okay, so he wants to find a simple interest, and it says earned after 5 years. So we know that T equals time, and that's 5 years. Okay, and on $1,200 invested, that is the principal, P. That's the amount invested. So P, the principal, equals $1,200. Okay, at 2% annual interest rate. Okay, so that's R for the rate. Now our rate, the rate, it says is 2%, but we want to change that to a decimal, which is 0.02. We just take that decimal and move it over 2 spaces to the left. So I think we have everything we need to calculate the I, the simple interest. We have our principal, we have our rate, the decimal, and the time in years, 5 years. So let's go ahead and substitute. So the principal is $1,200 multiplied by the rate, which is 0.02, times the time, which is 5 years. Okay, now let's go ahead and multiply. I'm just going to take the first 2 numbers and multiply it. And 1,200 times 0.02 gives us 24. And then I'm going to bring down that 5, multiply that times 5. Just brought that down. Now, looking pretty good, almost there. Multiply 24 times 5, we get 120 for the simple interest. Okay? So let's go ahead and write that up. I, which equals the simple interest, equals $120. And I think I'll just put that equal sign right here. So what does this mean? It says, for the simple interest earned after investing $1,200 for 5 years, earning a rate of 2% annually, that's what you earn on that $1,200 annually for 5 years. We substituted the numbers, and that interest that's earned, or simple interest, is $120 from that investment. Okay? Okay, so in this tip problem, it says the lunch check or the bill for Jennifer is $16.98. Estimate the tip using a rate of 15%. So let's underline some key information in this problem, okay? Now, it tells us that the bill or the lunch check is $16.98, and they want us to use a rate and they want us to find the tip and use a rate of 15%. okay? Well, always when you're dealing with percents, I always say convert that percent to a decimal because we may need to use that, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. We know that 15% is the same thing, so we write 15, and those two circles there would tell us to take this decimal and move it 2 spaces to the left. So now the decimal's here, and so that becomes 0.15. 15% is equal to 0.15. Okay? Now, when finding the tip, when you're at a restaurant or something and you need to find a tip and you want to estimate it, what you do is you take that rate. In this case, it's 15%. And you multiply it by the cost of the bill times the cost of the bill. And that's how we can calculate that tip. And so then you take that tip and you add it to the total cost of the bill. But we're not doing that, we're just calculating the tip. So here we go. We're just going to go ahead and follow this formula, if you will. So we know the rate is 0.15, so that's 0.15 multiplied by the cost of the bill. Now, that bill and now it says estimate, right? So we can estimate, we can round this 16.98, and that means approximately, we'll round it to 17, right? That number 9 tells us to make that 6 go higher, up 1, right? Because that 9 is greater than 5, or 5 or higher. So we estimated the check to be $17, so we'll use the bill of $17. So we did that using estimate, so we don't have to deal with all those numbers to estimate. So we estimated the cost of the bill. We take those two numbers and we multiply them, and what do we get? Well, let's go ahead and do a little long division over here. Why not? All right, 17 times 0.15. I think I'll just line them up. 0.15. 5 times 7 gives us 35. Bring the 3 up there. 5 times 1, that's 5 plus 3 is 8. Okay, put a placeholder here of 0. And then I'll get rid of that. 3. 1 times 7 is 7. 1 times 1 is 1. And we're going to add. Okay, so we add down, we get 5. We get 8 plus 7 is 15. Put a 5 there, carry the 1. And then we get a 2. Now we have two numbers behind the decimal. So we take that decimal and move it 2 spaces to the left. Okay? So 0.15 times 17 is 2.55. Okay? What that means is the tip, right? Which is what they wanted us to find. The tip for the cost of the bill, which is $16.98. That's estimated to be $2.55. That is our final answer, okay? All right, so that's how you can calculate the tip. Now, of course, we could have done it a quick way in our head. We also could have just said, okay, what's 10% of 17? You just move that decimal over 1 space, and then that's 1.7. And then but they want 15%, so we do another 10%, which is 1.7, right? But you need half of 1.7 to make it 15%. So you take half of 1.7, right? And then you take that number and you add it to the 1.7, you're still going to get the same as 2.55. That's just a quick way to do it in your head, but a lot of your math teachers are going to want you to show your work, okay? Right? And so we took that rate, multiplied it by the cost of the bill, which we rounded, okay? And I think I'm going to use the approximate symbol. There we go, which is approximately 17. And then we multiplied those numbers over here and got our tip. So thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Don't forget to check out my Patreon page in my video description below. On my Patreon page, you can get access to exclusive math lessons, study tips, live Q&A, and more. See you next time.